Welcome back to the Emily Show. Today we are dipping back into the world of Real Housewives, or fake housewives, but we'll get to that because we need to talk about Denise Richards' estranged ex-husband, Aaron Phypers, getting arrested at the end of a court hearing on Friday, literally in the hallway of the Stanley Mosk Courthouse in Los Angeles. We also need to talk about the Osefos from Real Housewives of Potomac because I have been asked quite a lot to take a look at this insurance fraud indictment. Oh boy, do we need to talk about that, because as indicted, it is a bold strategy, not necessarily a good one. And I have seen lots of confusion about the charges, the amount of potential prison time they are facing, and the amount of fines, which have been significantly undersold because there is an area of that statute that no one's talking much about. But we're here for the facts, so we're going to talk about it. But this episode, there's also going to be some of the other stuff too. So we should just get into it. I'm legal analyst Emily D. Baker, yes, also a lawyer, and this is The Emily Show. I break down the pop culture, entertainment, and high-profile cases that we're all talking about. I know you want the facts, so let's get into it. Leonard, you are going to be boarding soon for the EDB Air launch. Some of you might have already gotten a little bit of a sneak peek, but none of that would be possible if it weren't for Shopify. Not only do they have the best checkout on the internet, but they power millions of businesses and like 10% of all e-commerce in the US from a bunch of names you know. And if you've shopped on the Leonard shop, I bet you have seen their app so you can track your purchases across all the different Shopify shops. But if you're thinking, Emily, I can't design a website, don't worry. They've got plug and play templates ready for you that you would never guess are a template, and that's what I used to get started. And if you're thinking, what if I need a hand, or what if I get stuck? Don't worry, you can get help with all of the tasks in your shop with Shopify's tools, and they have 24/7 customer support that is super easy to work with. And even if people haven't heard of your brand or your business just yet, Shopify helps you find your customers with email and social media campaigns. Shopify makes it easy. So if you're ready to turn your dreams into cha-ching and have the best chance at success, Shopify is for you. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Leonard. That's at shopify.com/Leonard, and you're going to start hearing this sound soon. Let's get back to today's episode. I have covered the Denise Richards, Aaron Phypers divorce a bit on the podcast, and they were going through the hearings that we had talked about in Los Angeles, in the Stanley Mosk Courthouse. And we've talked about what he filed for divorce. We saw his interviews, her interviews, photos that were leaked, allegations that he was leaking and sharing intimate photos of her, and more. Well, they have been undergoing a hearing on the temporary restraining order that was issued. Remember, a TRO can be issued ex parte with just one party filing a document, and then there has to be a hearing on that. Aaron filed for divorce. Denise filed for the temporary restraining order. Aaron had been asking for spousal support. There's a new filing on that we're going to have to also talk about. And that hearing had been ongoing day over day. We're going to look at the court filings summarizing each day in court. They were back in court on Friday, October 17th, continuing the ongoing hearing to make the temporary restraining order permanent. And this has been 4 days now of hearings. Denise Richards has testified. Aaron has testified. Aaron's mother was testifying. After court ended on Friday, he went out into the hallway, and there are eyewitness reports that said there were 6 to 8 sheriff's deputies in the hallway, and Aaron was taken into custody on a criminal warrant when he stepped out of court from that civil hearing. Stanley Mosk in Los Angeles is the courthouse where a lot of the civil cases that we have talked about happen. It's where the Britney Spears conservatorship was, amongst others. And for those of you that have been around a long time, you know that I'd worked at that courthouse for a period of time when I worked for 2 of the judges that sat in Stanley Mosk in the civil division. So Stanley Mosk is an entirely civil courthouse. Criminal courthouse is down the street. Federal courthouse is down the street. So Stanley Mosk being one of the largest courthouses in Los Angeles and the primary civil courthouse in Los Angeles, lots of shit goes down at Stanley Mosk. But it is not the most usual thing that somebody gets arrested in the hallway of the civil courthouse. Does it happen in the criminal courthouse? Sometimes. So Aaron was arrested after court on criminal charges and on a new criminal filing. So we are going to take a look at that domestic violence related criminal filing. We do not have a lot of details on the criminal filing, but I went and pulled all the documents that I can. There aren't many that can be pulled at this point because it is a brand new filing. But this is not like we're going to see later with the Osefos. This is a complaint. It means there was a police report made, a filing decision was made by the LA County District Attorney's Office, a case was filed with numerous charges, an arrest warrant was issued, and he was arrested on that arrest warrant. That will then go through the process of either going to a plea or going to a preliminary hearing or setting the course towards trial and doing discovery and investigation, all of that. So what it means is police report, charges, filing, arrest warrant, not an indictment, not a grand jury. So not a probable cause hearing yet, just the probable cause for that arrest warrant. So he will be in court in Van Nuys on that case soon, but he also bonded out within the same day that he was arrested on Friday. So he is out of custody. His lawyer has made statements about the case. We'll talk about the lawyer's statements. His lawyer's statement is consistent with what you would think it would be. We look forward to our day in court to prove these allegations false. And Denise's lawyer made statements to the media saying these are domestic violence related charges. So let's take a look at the charges, and then we are going to go back into what is going on in that divorce and Aaron's latest filing asking for spousal support. Starting with a breakdown from People magazine, headline, Denise Richards' ex Aaron Phypers suddenly arrested in court on felony warrant during restraining order hearing. Just to be a picky lawyer, the hearing was over. He didn't get arrested in the courtroom during the hearing. He did get arrested in the hallway after the hearing was over and had been continued to another day. So the hearing had concluded before he was arrested. He was not arrested in court during the hearing. They also say the state of California has filed 4 criminal charges against Aaron Phypers. The Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office has filed 4 charges, and technically the LA County DA's office does represent the people of the state of California, but as written, it sounds like they are talking about the California State's Attorney's Office, and it's not the state's attorney's office. It is the LA DA's office. Does my audience know the difference? Yes. Does a broader audience know the difference? Maybe not, but I digress. Let's take a look at what they have to say. They say, Aaron Phypers has been arrested. He was removed from a Los Angeles County courthouse hallway, Emily Edit, and taken into custody on Friday, October 17th, 2 days after the state of California filed a felony warrant against him. No, the county of Los Angeles. He is being charged in, and this is why I pull the documents for myself. He is being charged in and by the county of Los Angeles. So yes, the heading on the pleading will be the people of the state of California, but it is the DA's office. I can understand those not familiar with reading the dockets would be confused, but y'all aren't going to be. That's the LA DA's office. It goes on to say the arrest occurred during a break at a hearing regarding ex-wife Denise Richards' restraining order against him. I mean, yes, they were breaking until the next court hearing. Phypers' attorney, Michael Finley, says, quote, I have not seen the criminal complaint yet. However, based on the little that I have been told, it appears to be the same allegations we're already fighting, and I think proving to be false in the domestic violence case. The attorney is referring to the TRO and the divorce case because this criminal complaint is the first time he's been charged with regard to Denise Richards with domestic violence. And I'm not saying that he has previously been or has not previously been. I just don't know. But they have an ongoing family law case, and the TRO involves allegations of domestic violence. That is all going on in the divorce case. We've talked about that in past episodes. The judge in that case, the family law case, granted Richards a continuance of her TRO until November 7th before resting for the day. The hearing is going to continue November 7th in that TRO case. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. They go on to say, according to records obtained by People, an 8-page criminal complaint was filed against Phypers on Thursday, October 16th at the Van Nuys Courthouse. That is what I have seen. There are 3 charges against him. We'll talk about what those charges are and what dates those charges stem from in just a minute. The warrant was set on October 16th. The warrant was requested on October 15th. The filing was from October 15th. What's interesting is that they have the arrest date, which I think they will need to update, as October 15th, but he was arrested the 17th. It looks like the arrest warrant was requested the 15th, but might not have been issued until the 16th. So I haven't seen the warrant, but the warrant had a bail set on the 16th. And then he was arrested on the 17th, and then he bonded out the 17th. So, law nerds, you will, of course, know all of the facts. People goes on to say that Aaron is facing criminal charges, including 2 counts of injuring a spouse, which are 2 domestic violence counts, and then 2 counts of dissuading a witness by force or threat. 3 of the alleged incidents underlying the charged offenses took place January 17th, 2022, and 1 on May 3rd, 2022, per records, which, based on the records I have pulled, I see that too. And based on covering the divorce case, we know that there was an incident where Denise talked about the fact that she was trying to call the police and he took her phone, among other things. That January 17th, 2022 incident is not lined out in the criminal complaints, but based on the charges here and then based on what we've seen in the divorce case, I would imagine that those are the same events. It goes on to quote Aaron's lawyer saying, quote, "When a criminal case is filed, the evidence has not been fully laid out and considered. Criminal cases get filed all the time and they get beaten. Just because a case is filed doesn't mean it's going to succeed. I personally believe Aaron, and I don't believe Denise or her witnesses. We are feeling pretty confident that we have shown that her allegations are false in the domestic violence case in the divorce court." Phypers was booked into the Lost Hill Sheriff Station near Malibu, California, shortly after 5 p.m. October 17th, and was released later that day on $200,000 of bail, records show. They go on to say earlier this month, Richards stated while on the stand that her estranged husband, quote, "caused me at least 3 concussions throughout their marriage from physical abuse." She further claimed that she learned of them because Phypers allegedly used equipment at his wellness center on her various times after she complained about headaches, not feeling good, and feeling nauseous. Don't mess with concussions. She also said in court that 1 concussion resulted from an incident on January 17th, 2022, while another happened sometime between March and May 2022. During that time, Phypers allegedly gave her a black eye after he injured her. I'm not going to get into the details of that. You have probably seen the photos from that black eye if you've been on the internet looking at this story. As we continue with what People is reporting, they say that Aaron, in previous statements and when he took the stand on October 8th, said, quote, "I never physically harmed Denise Richards. I never threatened to harm her. I did not threaten to kill anybody," he said. He further claimed that previous testimony from a neighbor and his cousin in Richards' favor was all, quote, "made up." Phypers added, "A lot of people like to be close to the stars. They'll do anything for them." Phypers also denied that he caused Richards multiple concussions, and he said he did not use equipment from his wellness center to check her for a concussion, as claimed during her testimony. We know that this is going to be a contentious divorce. It continues to be a contentious divorce, and it seems that one of the things Aaron is going to say is that people are going to misstate the truth for Denise because she's a celebrity. I imagine that we will see other things come into play because when I was looking through the hearing minute orders, we did see a number of things that Denise was admitting into evidence, like text messages and emails, including text messages between her and Aaron's mother. When she was asked about those on the stand on Friday, she was, in my opinion, distancing from them, saying, "I'm not really sure what I meant by that text. I'm not sure who the he is in the he's got to stop doing this or he's out of control responses to text messages." And the court will get to evaluate all of that. Remember, the evaluation in the divorce court is separate and different from any finding in the criminal court. In the criminal proceeding, the standards are beyond a reasonable doubt. It is a higher standard, and there still has to be probable cause hearings in the form of preliminary hearing. In the divorce court, they are looking at a different standard to decide if a temporary restraining order should become a permanent restraining order during the course of the divorce. Different things are being decided, and they have different standards in law. So down the road, if a permanent restraining order is granted, it doesn't mean ipso facto that he will be then found guilty of the charges against him. And he is charged with 2 counts of 273.5, a felony for injury to a spouse or cohabitant from those 2 different dates. So those are 2 different charges. Now in California, and this happens in other jurisdictions as well, but in California, that 273.5 charge can be a felony or can be a misdemeanor. So oftentimes in cases like that, defense attorneys will try to get the felony 273.5 reduced to a misdemeanor 273.5. That will depend on a whole bunch of factors, including how the victim relays the case, injuries, previous history, past history, criminal charges or criminal history or lack of criminal history, etc. So those discussions will happen at some point, though I imagine his lawyer isn't going to want him to take any pleas in the criminal case. Well, it might affect the divorce case. And I imagine that his lawyer will go into the criminal case and say, the only reason this is coming up now is because of the divorce case, because these things happened in 2022. And his lawyer will argue that these are being filed to gain advantage in the divorce case. I mean, those are the easy defense attorney arguments right off the bat. And then if that doesn't work, we'll try to reduce the seriousness of those. And then you have the felony dissuading a witness, 2 counts of that. So it is a serious criminal case. He is out of custody. He is also probably going to have a felony criminal restraining order issued by nature of Denise Richards being a victim in the criminal case. So as she is going through the process of receiving or seeking a permanent restraining order in the civil case, there will likely also be a restraining order granted while the criminal case is pending. So the restraining order is going to probably happen in both courts, would be my guess. One of the questions I saw quite a lot with this case is, can you be arrested in the hallway for the courthouse? Yes, you can. Generally, the court that you are in is given the heads up, not the parties, but like the bailiffs in that court and the judges and what have you. But yes, that can absolutely happen. And from those that were in the hallway outside of the courtroom for the restraining order hearing, they said that he seemed incredibly surprised. And I've seen numerous reports about that he seemed shocked that he was being arrested in the hallway because it was not being ordered from the court that he was just in front of. This is a warrant from the criminal court. So let's talk about what has been happening in the divorce case, including this new filing from Aaron regarding spousal support. I think we should take a look at that first, and then we will quickly take a look at what's been happening in the restraining order hearings. Though these hearings are covering quite a lot of things, they are mostly focused on the restraining order. We saw Denise arguing over return of property. We saw Denise complaining to the court of Aaron releasing photos of her to the media that were intimate photos of her and things like that. So there is a lot going on underlying Denise's request for this restraining order and Aaron fighting this restraining order. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think even if the court does not make this temporary restraining order permanent, the criminal judge will. The criminal judge is going to be like, no, these are 4 felonies that are domestic violence related. So there's going to be a criminal restraining order anyway. And I don't know if the civil case will just say, you know what, let's finish up the witnesses that we have, and then the civil order will just follow the criminal order. Maybe, but there should be at least temporary restraining order in all the criminal cases too. Looking at this filing from October 16th, 2025 at 5:35 p.m. So this was filed the evening before they went to court for the continuation of the hearing for the restraining order. This hearing has now been set for January 5th, 2026. So this is not being heard at the time. But what Aaron is asking for through his attorney is spousal support, property control, and access to joint income and joint accounts. Instead of just going through the document, we are going to go directly to Aaron's narrative statement to see exactly what he's asking for, because we have seen him ask for significant amounts of spousal support in the past. The checkbox for spousal support is being requested. He checks that the court should make a change, but here's what he has to say at the beginning of narrative 1. My means of income have been taken away from me by respondent, Denise, who has withheld the holistic treatment equipment that I previously used in my holistic health business, which I am curious about because he was still in their joint home and she had moved. And it's confusing to me that his equipment wouldn't have been in the larger house. So I have questions about the equipment and whether or not she paid for them. He says, further, she has transferred our joint financial accounts to new places, and I don't have access to any of the joint funds that were acquired during our marriage of several years. Further, I helped her build her OnlyFans account. Go back to the episode where we talked about this, and I said he is going to start saying that he owns half of the OnlyFans account. We clocked that when he first started asking for hundreds of thousands of dollars in spousal support. We clocked it immediately. Further, he says, I helped her to build her OnlyFans account, and I actually hold the intellectual property rights to most, if not all, of the pictures that are used on her page. But she has cut me off from accessing that joint income that we earned together. Now, if you are going to ask, Emily, is Aaron in any of the OnlyFans? First, I don't know. But second, I would speculate that it is mostly photos of her because I have watched all of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And though I am not caught up on every other franchise at the moment, we clocked that he was going to say, I took the photos. So I own the copyright as the photographer. And we have talked about copyright law in other ways about who owns the rights to the photos, the photographer or the individual. And we have covered some of the paparazzi lawsuits where a celeb will put up a photo taken of them by paps on their Instagram and then get sued for copyright of the photo of themselves that the paps took of them, saying, no, we own the copyright. There are lots of legal conversations. Those legal conversations do not quell the gut response of, ew, are you fucking kidding me? And so he is arguing that he is the intellectual property holder of the pictures used on her page. And those pictures, I imagine, are just and solely pictures of her. However, if he is the photographer, there will be legal challenges over the ownership of the OnlyFans account. That is going to be a legal fight. No matter how much ick you have over it, it is going to be a legal fight. He goes on to say that that is joint income that they owned together. He goes on to say in the property control regards that he wants access to $200,000 from joint accounts. He says in parentheses, which is only a small fraction. He also says he wants access to the equipment he had in his business. He says it was obtained before marriage. Again, she is staying in, it seems like, a condo and an office space, and he is in or was in the larger house. So we will see where that goes. I'm going to read the rest of his narrative. I have some other legal questions because here's the other thing as he talks about the OnlyFans. He goes on to say, I request that I receive half of the OnlyFans income that is our joint income that we built and earned together. Since I took the photos and own the intellectual property rights, copyrights, to the photos that I took, and from which the OnlyFans income is still being generated, I do not believe this constitutes spousal support, but a property right to half of the jointly earned OnlyFans business income. We're going to talk about that more in a moment. We're going to read the rest of his narrative. I'm trying to refrain from all of the legal thoughts. There are legal thoughts. Is he trying to sidestep spousal support into like half business ownership? Yes. Are there legal reasons to do that? 100% yes. Let's look at the entire single-spaced, font size like 10 declaration that he has attached. This is his signed and sworn declaration under penalty of perjury from October 15th, 2025. Emily, we were just talking about October 15th. Yes. While he was writing and signing this declaration about the OnlyFans account, the LA County District Attorney's Office was writing and signing warrants for his arrest and a complaint and submitting that to the court. It begins, I am petitioner in the aforementioned action and the restrained party in the domestic violence matter. This is within the divorce proceeding. I offer my declaration in lieu of personal testimony pursuant to sections 2009 and 2015.5 of the California Code of Civil Procedure, and then he cites other sections in case law as well. The facts stated herein are within my personal knowledge, and I further affirmatively state that if sworn as a witness, I could and would testify competently thereto. And now, the narrative. We had millions of dollars in joint accounts before I filed for divorce, but respondent took control of the accounts and has not allowed me access to any of the funds, despite the fact that much of our money came from during our marriage, such as large sums that she earned from her OnlyFans page using pictures that I took and to which I hold the copyrights. I am out of money and financially desperate. I mean, he posted bond. I am about to be evicted from the residence in which I am living. My utilities, water, power, gas, have been turned off already. There is rent owed for several months totaling $120,000. And Denise owes half of that, not only because she is on the lease, but because she kept her dogs at the residence and a substantial amount of her personal belongings. So he's saying she owes half of the $120,000 in back rent because her shit's there. I owe my attorney $10,000 right now. Your attorney would have known your financial situation before taking the case. And if your attorney signed on to the case and not for limited representation, the court might make your attorney stay on the case even if you owe your attorney money. Because courts be like that. He goes on to say, which he needs to continue assisting me in the case. There are repairs that need to be made on the house that I am living in. My cell phones, yes, plural, I did not misread that, though with the single spacing and the small font, it is possible, but I did not misread that. My cell phones are getting turned off. There are many fees that need to be paid to turn utilities back on. I therefore am requesting that I receive at least $200,000 from our joint accounts, which is only a small portion of the funds that were there when I filed for dissolution of marriage in July 2025. He goes on to say this is not spousal support, nor even half of the joint accounts, just a small portion of what is needed for me to survive, pay these debts, and be able to live safely like a normal person. There is real danger of irreparable harm if I do not receive this, as I and my parents will be evicted and homeless with no funds to go anywhere. When Denise went to my residence to retrieve her belongings, she took some of my belongings, including a separate property health treatment machine and my weight set that she gave me as a separate property gift. He is arguing over eviction and $200,000 and then is like, and she took my weights. Okay. When I went to retrieve my belongings from the locations under her control, she had boxes containing other health treatment machines of mine in boxes with notations that I was not to take them. I need that equipment in order to try to make a living, and she is preventing me from doing so. In addition, I was informed by her father, Irv, after this divorce case was filed that she intends to sell off my health machines in order to get cash. This would be a violation of the automatic temporary restraining order and would also violate my rights, as many of the machines were acquired by me before marriage. It doesn't matter how much money is involved in a marital estate. People will fight over property in just about every dissolution. It is why detailed prenups are incredibly common. It is why I don't know a lawyer that doesn't say get a prenup unless they're the ones that are going to make money fighting over this if you don't get a prenup. And then they have a vested interest, and I wouldn't believe them. The fighting over property is one of the things, in addition to custody, that will take so much time in a divorce. He goes on to say, respondent has no idea of their value, the machines. So if she makes good on her threat to sell them, she will certainly let go of them at below actual value, causing additional losses. It would be very expensive for me to acquire such machines all over again in order to rebuild my health treatment center business. Since respondent prevented me from obtaining my equipment and took equipment from my residence when she was only supposed to remove her things, I request that she be ordered to deliver all of the equipment to my residence safely and undamaged. My hope is to be able to use them for business purposes again to make income. Further, I do not have adequate funds to rent a moving truck to pick up the machines. So he's saying she needs to deliver them to me because she took them, is what he's arguing. Also, there is a danger of irreparable harm if respondent carries out her threat to sell them off. We've heard. With regard to the OnlyFans page, I said this when we started seeing the rumblings of it in the initial divorce filing. I imagine that Denise Richards' OnlyFans page is incredibly lucrative, though she was catching shade from Erica Girardi on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills about the OnlyFans page. But if her OnlyFans page is incredibly lucrative, this is going to be an item of property that he is going to fight over. Why is he going to treat it like property? Well, let's look at the amount of money he's talking about, and then we'll talk about that. With regard to the OnlyFans page, the money that she receives from it is about $200,000 to $300,000 per month. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if she's making $200,000 to $300,000 per month on OnlyFans. Would that shock me? Would that number on OF shock me? No, it wouldn't. So he is saying that he is entitled to half of the asset or half of the property that is the OnlyFans account because she is making $200,000 to $300,000 per month from that account. He is saying that the income is derived from photographs that I took to which I hold the intellectual property rights. He goes on to say, therefore, it is our joint earnings and not hers alone. I request that I receive half of the OnlyFans income as a property control right. Respondent earns significant additional funds from other entertainment work, including Comic-Con appearances, television shows, and movies. Therefore, she has the ability to pay spousal support to me in addition to half of the joint OnlyFans income that I'm requesting. However, I would be willing to survive. I am not embellishing. For all of you that listen in the background, it's written on the page. It says that. However, I would be willing to survive on my half of the joint OnlyFans earning if necessary. The court has set a hearing for January with regard to all of this. I do not know if Aaron has been paid monthly by Denise for being her OnlyFans photographer. If this was a work for hire and he's been paid for it, then he might not own the copyrights. If Denise was like, it's all good, we're married, and there's no formal agreement, then he might be entitled to half or some or a property interest in her OnlyFans. He may legally be entitled to that depending on what agreements they have. Photographers generally own the copyright to the photos that they take unless there are agreements in place before that. We don't know all of that, and we don't know all of it here. But is it possible that he's correct? Yes. It is absolutely possible that he is correct if there are not other agreements, and there may well be. Denise hasn't responded to any of this yet. It's not going to court till January. The reason that this matters is because as we are talking about what amount of money Aaron Phypers is willing to survive on, there are also significant allegations of domestic violence, and now there has been an arrest and a criminal filing regarding the alleged domestic violence from the same dates that Denise has talked about it within the divorce proceedings. And a finding that that is true can negate the spousal support. but that wouldn't necessarily negate property ownership, intellectual property ownership, and other types of rights. So he might be excluded from spousal support. And that may be a reason that he is endeavoring to go after the OnlyFans account. It's going to be a legal fight over that, no matter how gross it feels. So the photos of Denise, if he took them without a work for hire or similar agreement, might be something that they fight over. Now, would Denise ever say, okay, all the photos that he took are down? She might hire a new photographer, take new photos, we'll see. But also, her lawyer would have to have a talk with her about reducing the value of an asset so that the spouse doesn't get it. We now get into quite a lot of laws and rules about what happens. If that is a marital asset, what would happen if she just shut it down? Well, that's going to be a very in-depth conversation for her and her lawyer, because that might also be a problem if she just decided to shut it all down. But he might be entitled to whatever earnings up till his photos are no longer being used. We will have to see. That is going to be a significant item of discourse in court. And we have talked about cases, including the Haley Page wedding dress case, where she and the company were fighting over ownership of an Instagram account. And 15 years ago, would we have been talking about any of this? No, but there is such significant money to be made on an account that has a following. Now, I would imagine that the reason Denise's OnlyFans account is worth $200,000 to $300,000 a month is not because somehow Aaron Phypers is like the Annie Leibovitz of OF photography. I imagine it's because people want to see Denise Richards, and whatever level of scantily or notly clad she may be. Everybody wants to just wild things with Denise Richards. It's not the cinematography or the photography. It is not the dynamic lighting and the color balancing that I think people are looking for. So could she change the photos used on the account? Sure. Does it also sit really, really awkwardly in this scenario to see someone who is a photographer fighting over the property rights in the intimate photos being taken of the spouse who they are accused of abusing? Yeah, it's not the copyright scenario of photographers that generally comes up. It's an unusual fact scenario, but it's one that I wonder if we will see more, as we have seen notable social media couples where the woman is on screen and the partner is not, and who owns the rights to those things. My life advice, lawyer advice, is A, talk to an attorney. B, get work for hire releases. C, make sure it's really clear who owns what and how, because those situations can go south. And we have seen that with others on social, where they might not want to be pushing the thing, but the other partner who's also making the money is pushing them to do the thing. This is going to be a very interesting legal fight that is going to really bump up against where legality and morality feel like they are going in divergent directions. But we are going to keep an eye on it. Let's talk about what is going on in the divorce case. We are looking first at the order from the hearing on October 6th. So we're going to look at the 3 days of hearings before the hearings then continued to the 17th. The orders from the 17th are not available yet. I am sure the clerk has not gotten them done and posted just yet onto the docket. But when we get a breakdown of the rest of Aaron's testimony and his mother's testimony in the minute orders, we will follow up on a follow-up episode. So it's a perfect time for me to remind you to get the Lawnerd app at lawnerd.app.com, because when there are new episodes of The Emily Show, I let you know in the app. When the new EDB Air launch for merch is available soon, very, very soon. If you're watching this episode the day it drops, you will be among the first to know if you are in the app. So if you would like to know and be in the first before the public on sale, you need the Lawnerd app. The EDB Air launch is going to be really cute. She's really cute. And you might want to tune in Tuesday for our live stream to talk about how really cute it is. Let's talk about court. Less cute. This is a minute order. You're going to be like, Emily, it's dated October 7th. Yes, it's a correction. It is a nunc-pro-tunc. The judge corrected it. It is a corrected minute order from the 6th, so it's the most up-to-date one, even though it's dated a day behind because it was clarified. The court said there are no appearances. This matter is not called for hearing. It appearing to the court that through inadvertence or clerical error, the minute order of October 6th in the above entitled action does not reflect the court's order. At the direction of the judicial officer, the judge, said minute order is corrected nunc-pro-tunc as of October 6th. So this is the correction. And the court is noting in the minute order that they are striking respondent Denise Richards is sworn and testifies on direct examination by her own counsel. And it is amended that she is sworn later. It starts with Petitioner's Exhibit 9, a July 4th, 2025 text to Aaron's mom for him to stay away or obtain restraining order, as Exhibit 52, July 25th, 2025 Daily Mail article, Denise Richards' estranged husband, Aaron Phypers, lifts lids on her alleged affair with marine lover and insane home life. That's the headline from the Daily Mail. They are each marked for identification. Petitioner's Exhibit 40, video of Aaron running with Denise's laptop, no audio, is marked for identification and received into evidence. Petitioner's Exhibit 40 is played in open court. Remember, getting back the laptop is one of the things that Denise discussed in those previous petitions that we covered. Petitioner's Exhibit 50, July 5th, Denise text to Aaron's mother regarding where is her laptop / screenshot of location of Denise's laptop on Find My iPhone, is marked for identification and received into evidence as to page 2 only. The matter stands in recess for the lunch break at 3 p.m. It's a late lunch, court. Where's our 1:30 lunches that we're used to? What was going on in the morning? The matter resumes at 3:15 with all parties present as heretofore. Respondent Denise Richards is sworn and testifies on direct examination by her own counsel. Petitioner's Exhibit 10, June 2nd, 2023, pictures of bruise on Denise's arm on red carpet, which has been released into the media. Exhibit 11, pictures of Denise's black eye that Aaron caused when he hit her, are marked for identification and received into evidence. I will just put an asterisk note right here. That is how the exhibit is titled by the lawyers. That is not the court making a statement of truth or finding of fact. That is what Denise is saying with regard to how she received the black eye. Aaron disputes that. So they're marked as identification. Petitioner's Exhibit 15, June 10th, 2020, lease on the residence in Calabasas. Exhibit 14, picture of type of Aaron's guns. There is also a motion here to have him turn over any weapons. That motion is still pending. And with the criminal case, it will probably move along a little bit quicker. Exhibit 27, July 19th, 2025, TMZ article titled, quote, Aaron Phypers, all caps, Denise was cheating on me. That's why I filed. And I got receipts, end quote. That is much of a headline. Exhibit 32, videotape and transcript of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills recording when Aaron tells Denise, don't tell me what to say or I'm going to crush your fucking hand. Stop it. Each are marked for identification. You may have seen that clip. That clip has been widely shared on social. It was discussed at the reunion. We discussed it in a previous episode. The court has now seen it. How many cases have we seen clips of Real Housewives come into evidence? I am starting to lose count. The court then added, remember, this is the court editing after the fact and saying, I'm editing it now, but it's as if it was written this way yesterday. It's basically time travel. Adding, respondent Denise Richards previously sworn and remaining under oath, resumes testifying on direct examination by her own counsel. And then they go through the exhibits, and then they go through the lunch break, and then you have the updated order and everything marked for identification. So, Emily, what is the big correction? That Denise was already under oath and resumes testifying. And then the court's order, which I do not see because I don't see a court order other than the items of evidence being added. That is what happened on October 6th in court. Let's take a look at what happened the next day. Looking now at the minute order filed by the court from the hearing date on October 7th, 2025, the following parties are present: Aaron, Denise, lawyers. Parties appearing via Court Connect, lawyers, and what looks to be a witness. The matter resumes from October 6th with all parties present as heretofore. Respondent Denise Richards, previously sworn, remaining under oath, resumes testifying on direct examination and also testifies on cross-examination. So on this day, Denise is testifying, finishing her direct, and then on cross, and this is the court minutes of what happened. Respondent is Denise Richards. Petitioner is Aaron. He is the one that filed for divorce, even though she is the one that filed for the restraining order. So Exhibit A, screen captures of missed calls received from respondent since the TRO was issued. So all of the phone calls Denise was placing to Aaron since her filing. Exhibit B, screen capture of text messages sent by Denise to an acquaintance of Aaron asking for him to call her after the TRO was issued. Don't do that. Don't reach out to third parties and be like, I need to talk to him. You filed for a TRO. Nope. Exhibit C, text messages sent by Denise to Aaron after the TRO was issued, asking Aaron to call her, all marked for identification. The matter stands in recess for the morning break at 10:15, resumes at 10:30. Denise, previously sworn, resumes testifying on cross. Aaron's Exhibit D, video that Denise sent to Aaron after the TRO was issued. Exhibit F is a picture of Aaron's smashed phone found in the trash. Those are all marked for identification. Denise's Exhibit 40, previously marked, is received into evidence and was played in open court. They went to lunch at 12 o'clock, resumed at 1:30. Then they called a witness out of order, witness named Pamela. The witness testified, was excused. The matter went on the afternoon break at 2:40 till 2:55. Another witness was called out of order. This was the witness that was on essentially Zoom and testified, is excused. Denise Richards resumes testifying on cross. So they called those two witnesses out of order, and then Denise resumed cross-examination. Aaron's Exhibit G, which are text messages between Denise and Aaron regarding tracker, it says, and smashed phone, are marked and received. Then we have other evidence items from Aaron. Video taken by Brett Phypers when Denise invaded his room on 8/3/2025. Remember, the lawyers are the ones titling these things. The titling is done by the attorneys. So the way these things are being described by the lawyers. Exhibit J is a transcript of that video. Exhibit L is a video with transcript showing respondent Denise telling doctor that she bruises super easily with a transcript. The next exhibit is a video with a transcript of Denise refusing to allow movers to pick up Aaron's personal property. Exhibit Q is a video of Denise praising Aaron as a husband and father. I would be curious when that video is from. Exhibit T is a People magazine article that has Denise praising Aaron. Again, date check. Exhibit U is an Instagram post from Denise praising Aaron as a father to her children. Same question. Exhibit W is a video clip with transcript in which Denise states, quote, "It's not easy being married to me," with a transcript, and those are all marked for identification. The next Exhibit R is a Daily Dish quote of Denise saying that she and Aaron respect each other. Exhibit S is a People magazine quote about Denise honoring Aaron for Father's Day. And those are all marked for identification and received into evidence. Pursuant to the court's own motion, the request DV prevention within existing case filed by Denise on July 16th, 2025 is continued to October 8th. So the court's like, we're not done. We're not going to be done. We're continuing. It goes on to say any temporary orders were previously extended are to remain in full force and effect through October 8th. Order and request to continue the court hearing was signed and filed September 8th. Notice is acknowledged by the parties. Continuing. So that's what happened October 7th. October 8th. Looking at the minute order from October 8th, this is the continued hearing. It talks about the parties that are present in person and a few parties that are on LA Court Connect, which is their version of Zoom. Just a note for any of you curious, being like, wait, LA has like a Zoom? Can you Zoom in? No. Nope, lawyers and witnesses only. If you want to go to court in LA, you got to go sit in the hard pews in LA. No other options. After the Britney Spears case, they shut down all of the remote audio access. And unless they allow cameras in court, which they tend to not do in family law cases and have been denied each time they've been requested in this case, that is the only option, is to go sit in person. The matter is resuming. They are calling a witness out of order. A Dr. McAllister, previously sworn, remaining under oath, testifies. There is a printout from the doctor's website that's marked for identification. And then Denise Richards resumes testifying under oath. There are more exhibits that are marked, including Denise's Exhibit 59. It says August and September 2025. Denise Richards' cell phone records showing all calls made to Aaron. Exhibit 61 is a photograph and are marked for identification. I wonder if there's a difference. Continuing with Denise's Exhibit 57, September 13th, 2025, picture of Aaron's truck watching Denise when she picked up her FFA. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know why they're assuming that the truck is watching her, but that is how the lawyers title it. Exhibit 58, July 5th through 7th, 2025. It says DR's email chain with Aaron regarding abuse. Each are marked for identification. Aaron's Exhibit K, text messages from Denise to Aaron apologizing for affairs and begging him to help her through her surgeries, marked for identifications. Petitioner's oral motion for dismissal is denied, so Aaron made a motion to dismiss the TRO, or the temporary restraining order, to make it a permanent restraining order. The court denied it. They went to recess for the morning break at 10:25, resumed at 10:40. Aaron was sworn to testify under oath and then started testifying. They went to lunch at noon, back at 1:30, very typical California schedule. Then Aaron resumed direct examination. His exhibits A, C, and F were marked. His next exhibit I, which was a receipt of a report from Lost Hills Sheriff Station on 7/20/25, is marked for identification. I covered that too, where he called law enforcement because Denise showed up at the home in Calabasas after these initial petitions had been filed. So that is in previous coverage that was submitted to the court. Afternoon recess from 2:50 to 3:05, he resumed testifying. Denise's Exhibit 33, a July 19th, 2025 video and transcript from TMZ, an interview with Aaron discussing Denise's texts of pictures of an alleged affair, and then a transcript, are admitted into evidence. Then Aaron's exhibit, which are messages between respondent and Rudy Reyes, are discovered in July 2025, are marked for identification. So this is more fighting over an alleged affair. The parties are ordered to return to Department 64 at 8:30 a.m. October 17th and November 7th. So those are the continuing dates. We know they returned on the 17th. They had a hearing. Aaron continued testifying and finished his testimony. His mother was testifying. And then in the hallway, he was taken into custody. It's going to be real interesting when they go back to court on November 7th. They are continuing all of the orders in effect. So the restraining order and the other orders are not going to expire while the hearing continues on. And then they have, at the very end, some housekeeping matters. Where does this leave us in the divorce? They are still not done with the extensive multi-day hearing on making the temporary restraining order a permanent restraining order. Will the arrest complicate that? It depends on what the attorneys say about it, but it might moot some of this if a temporary restraining order that covers the length of the criminal case is issued. We will see what happens. I will keep following it in court if you are interested. But Aaron is dealing with the divorce case, the issue of property and spousal support. It is also going to be dealing with the more serious matter because it carries or can carry jail or prison time, depending on what happens with the case down the road, but is having to deal with a criminal domestic violence case. So we will keep an eye on where those things go. I do not think this is going to go away anytime soon. This case causes me concerns. I'm concerned about this case. I don't know if Denise is recording Real Housewives at this time. This case concerns me. I hope that the parties stay away from one another. I hope that the parties stay safe. I hope that they have ceased contact except through their lawyers, because these emotions can run so incredibly high, and adding a criminal case into it, they can add a lot of pressure. So I hope very much that the parties are able to let this happen in court and are able to let the lawyers handle it. That is my hope. We will see what happens. But I was not expecting to see that Aaron was arrested in the hallway after court. That was very surprising to me. I think it was very surprising to him. I think it was really surprising to everyone. I was surprised. And speaking of surprises, I don't think I've seen anyone respond to the Osefos' indictment with anything other than surprise. And not only is it surprising, but we're going to cover some of the facts of that case. And I find them surprising and confusing. So let's get into that. Leonard, you know that one of the things I struggle with, no matter what we are covering on the channel or on live streams, is making sure I have time for meals. Today's sponsor, Hungryroot, solves that problem, because not only can you shop for groceries and snacks that are a step above what I would pick when I am at the grocery store starving, going just throw something in the cart, but also meals, and you can search by how long they take to make. So no matter what your level of prep is or what your weekly needs are, you can pick meals that are ready in 5 to 10 minutes, meals that take longer to cook, meals for you, meals for the family. And it's really easy to search by dietary preferences, sensitivities, allergies. So not only can you get your groceries or your meals or a combination of both, but it's delivered right to you, and you can modify what you're getting from the app or from the website. Plus, you can skip a week or delay a delivery, and it's all really easy to do so that you have food that you can grab and feel good about. I know you're going to love Hungryroot as much as I do, and of course, we have a deal for you. So make sure you take advantage of our exclusive offer. For a limited time, you get 40% off your first box, plus you get a free item in every box, and this is where I explore new snacks, different flavors of beef sticks, and all the things. So go to hungryroot.com/Leonard and use code Leonard. That's hungryroot.com/Leonard and use code Leonard to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. That's hungryroot.com/Leonard. Use code Leonard. Let's get back to today's episode. It's been too long since we have gotten to just talk about reality TV. And unfortunately, the reality TV stuff is overlapping way too much into the criminal law stuff. But it is where we are. For those of you that watch Real Housewives of Potomac, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who do not watch Real Housewives of Potomac, don't worry, I'll give you an overview, because we are going to talk a little bit of insurance fraud. Emily, you sound too happy about insurance fraud. Look, back in the day, way back in the day, I very much enjoyed working in the arson unit at the LA DA's office when I was a law clerk. A lot of the cases, Emily, are we going to talk about Palisades? Yes, just not today. But a lot of the cases that we handled were insurance fraud. Arson was a factor, but at the heart, they were insurance fraud. And you know Emily, she likes a binder full of bank accounts, because fraud cases were something that I very much enjoyed breaking down for people, looking at. Some of us just love paper cases. And so when I saw insurance fraud, I was like, oh, tell me a little bit more. Was there a fire? No. A burglary. How riveting. How many burglaries have become plot lines on The Real Housewives? I think there's been at least 3 on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, because you had the Dorit burglary that people thought may or may not have been staged, but there was video about it. I think Dorit, and this is just my opinion, Dorit seemed completely shaken and still seems to be recovering from the fear and trauma that went with that. But there were questions on the internet. And then it was Kyle Richards, wasn't it, who had a number of her purses stolen. They weren't filming, but had a lot of her purse collection stolen. And then, for those of you who are Real Housewives fans, you will remember Erica Girardi talking about the fact that Tom Girardi somehow stopped a burglar before he flipped his car and injured himself. And so, yeah, she's really stressed.
Tom's house was broken into and he confronted the burglar and then had to go have eye surgery. And then my son had to go over and help. And then my son, he rolled his car 5 times on the way home. Yeah, I'm under a lot of stress.
Wait, what?
We have seen burglaries discussed quite a lot. And this is something that when Kim Kardashian was robbed in Paris, well, no, before that, the bling ring, I think, was one of the first high profile cases that I remember where individuals were targeted based on the things that they showed on TV or reality TV, not even social media. And with the bling ring, they were following when people were out of town to break into their homes. And we saw this with Kim Kardashian being targeted in Paris in a terrifying robbery, a kidnap robbery, but she was being targeted based on the things she shared on social. I had a case with a celebrity that was targeted based on someone knowing their schedule and when they would be out of the home at conventions, and stole a ton of their property and jewelry that was incredibly sentimental because it was family heirlooms. This is not new. So for those that are on reality TV, I would imagine it sits a little uneasy filming in your home. But part of reality TV, and a big part of reality TV, is showing what you own and flaunting wealth, which is a whole nother conversation. But if you are flaunting what you own, it can make you a target. And I'm sure some of you will inevitably be like, Emily, the bling ring. Okay, quick summary. Celebrities, including Paris Hilton, were targeted based on things they were sharing on social media. And the bling ring would break into their houses and not just steal shit, but also party in their houses when they knew they were out of town. It happened also in Los Angeles at the time that I was working at the LADA's office. It was a whole thing. Moving on to this. So we have seen people who are high profile be targeted based on what they show on television. And then we've also seen people who are high profile, Teresa and Joe Giudice and Jen Shaw. And I mean, I don't think Karen Huger was arrested for DUI because she was a housewife. I think she was arrested for DUI because of the drunken collision. But we have seen, we've seen a number of DUIs, but we have also seen other crimes playing out across the Real Housewives. And I have often said that, as to the U.S. Attorney's Office, I kind of volunteer as tribute on the task force that is now invariably looking at people on reality TV. And I imagine at some point that I will turn to social media. They just haven't caught up yet, because if you want to talk about people flaunting wealth, go take a peek at TikTok. Okay, continuing on to talk about the Osefos. Everything I have seen and every response I have seen from this was A, shock, and B, how much time are they facing? We are going to take a look real quick at what are the charges, what is being alleged, what is the time that they are facing realistically, what are the financial penalties they are facing, and then what are some of the other penalties they are facing. But for those of you that are not familiar with Wendy and Eddie Osefo, they are on Real Housewives of Potomac. They joined, I think, in season 5 that started airing in the summer of 2020. However, a little bit of background on them because it is incredibly relevant here. Wendy has numerous advanced degrees, has been a college professor, had started this year as a distinguished visiting professor at Wesleyan University. She has a master's in government from Johns Hopkins and an MSc in public affairs from Rutgers and a PhD from Rutgers. So numerous advanced degrees. She was previously an assistant professor at Johns Hopkins and was teaching a sociology class at Wesleyan and had started teaching her class for the semester on October 8th at Wesleyan, the day before the arrest on October 9th, 2025. It has been a busy October in the reality legal sphere. The school newspaper indicated that an email went out on the 9th to the students of the class saying that a different professor would be taking over that course. But the university has also clarified that since the arrest, she has chosen to step down. She was not terminated. So that is what the university is saying. Let's talk real quick about Eddie. Eddie is an attorney. Not only is he an attorney, but he is an attorney that has a JD, that is the lawyer degree before you pass the bar and become an esquire, but also has an MBA and an LLM. So a master's of business. An LLM is like a master's in an area of law. So like 2 master's degrees and a Juris Doctor. Emily, what is his LLM in? Tax law and taxation from Georgetown. He has a master's in law, an LLM in taxation and tax law from Georgetown. And his MBA and JD are also from Rutgers. So when we talk about understanding the law, and as we get into the facts here, I don't understand how we got here and the choices that they are alleging are made, are alleged to have been made, but they are a highly educated couple and a high achieving couple. And Wendy's tagline for this season of Real Housewives of Potomac, which was supposed to air October 14th and got pushed to October 21st. So if you want to tune in, there's still time when this episode goes live to tune in to Real Housewives of Potomac on the 21st. Her tagline this year is, I put the high in higher education. Why? Because she and her husband, it seems, also own a business called Happy Eddie Cannabis Company. There's a lot there when we talk about the potential consequences here, especially as it relates to professional licensing. And the licensing to have a lawful cannabis company is no joke. The licensing to run a cannabis company is significant, and having a felony is going to disqualify you. And I think every single jurisdiction, but we're not talking about a felony. No, we're not. We're not talking about a felony. We're going to go through the facts here. Wendy has been charged with 7 felony counts in this indictment of insurance fraud, 8 misdemeanor counts of conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and a misdemeanor count of false statements to a police officer. Eddie is charged with 9 felony counts of insurance fraud, 8 misdemeanor conspiracy for insurance fraud counts, and the misdemeanor false statement to a police officer. Emily, that sounds like a lot. It is. If all of these counts ran consecutive, meaning one after the other, which they probably won't, I assume neither of them have any record. We're going to talk about the amount in question, which is a huge factor when it comes to fraud cases. But if their sentences ran one after another, Wendy is facing, on just the felonies, I didn't total in the misdemeanors, because sometimes those might run concurrent, more likely, and sometimes they will merge into one another. So I only looked at the felonies, which was, I think, generous. On the felonies, Wendy is facing a maximum of 105 years in prison, because each one carries 15 years. And here's where I saw not many people reading the full code section of what they are charged with, because each charge carries a fine, of course it does, of $500 up to $10,000. Or, nobody really looked at the or. 3 times the value of the claim that is subject to the fraud, whatever is greater, and restoring any property or value to the victim. This is an insurance fraud case. If they received payout on any of those plans, they have to pay back what they got from insurance first. And then they can face 3 times the amount of the claims they made, not the amount of money they got from their insurance. And the amount of the claims they made is in the document from the court that we're going to look at in just a minute, because how much time is Eddie facing is what you want to know right now. Emily, what about Eddie? Yeah, 9 felony counts, a max of 135 years. Plus returning the value of the property, and plus the 3 times the value of the claim, because, spoiler, that's more than the fines attached to the charge, and it's the greater of the two. So let's take a look at what the state of Maryland has to say in their bail review memo. Both Wendy and Eddie were arrested. I'm sure you have seen their mugshots online. They were arrested. They went to court. They received bail. They are out on bail. They have future hearing dates set for what day? November 7th. November 7th, same day Denise is back in court. Yes, it is. Wendy's lawyer has already filed their appearance and asked for discovery and things like that. I did not see that on the docket yet from Eddie's attorney, but I'm sure it will follow shortly behind. I will also link the press conference down below, because in the press conference, it was asked at the very end of the sheriff, was part of the reason this indictment came down because of their prominence on Real Housewives. And he said, I don't care if she's a real housewife, a fake housewife, or whatever, we're looking into these cases. So I will link that press conference down below, because it seems that in the neighborhood where Wendy and Eddie reside, there has never been a burglary. Law enforcement was like, hey, this is odd. This doesn't happen very much. Let's take a look at what the state is alleging happened here. This is filed by the state of Maryland. They are being prosecuted in Maryland, which I'm sure most of you were like, right, Real Housewives of Potomac, right. On Thursday, October 9th, and if this seems a little blurry, it's the document, it's not you. On Thursday, October 9th, defendant was indicted by the grand jury for Carroll County on 7 counts of insurance fraud, 8 counts of conspiracy insurance fraud. This is just for Wendy. That's why the counts differ a little bit. An arrest warrant was issued and bail was set for $50,000. The allegations in this case are that on April 7th, 2024, the sheriff's office responded to house location for a call of a reported burglary. A deputy was met by the homeowners, Edward, Eddie, and Wendy Osefo, who reported to him that they had left to go on a trip to Jamaica on April 2nd, 2024, and when they returned home on April 7th at approximately 10 p.m., they found their bedroom and both closets to be ransacked, and several designer handbags and jewelry had been stolen. The state's evidence would show the purported point of entry into the home to be the owner's bedroom window on the 2nd floor. The window looks onto a small roof that is about 9 feet above the deck. There were no ladders, and the deck furniture was undisturbed, and no indication anyone had been on the deck. The Osefos stated they did not touch anything prior to police arrival. There was a screen with damage laying on the roof, and the window was not locked. To go in or out of that window, one has to step on the toilet. It's like something out of Clerks. The toilet lid was down and had no debris on it. When sheriff's office personnel stepped onto the roof and back into the home, they tracked roof grit back inside. Anyone who's been on a roof knows exactly what they're talking about. The Osefos had an ADT security system and a Ring camera. The ADT system was activated upon leaving for vacation. During the time they were away, there was no motion detected inside the residence. There was activity, such as package deliveries on the Ring camera that was monitored remotely by the Osefos. Investigation determined that on April 8th, 2024, the Osefos initiated 3 separate insurance claims for burglary and theft. Traveler's insurance, jeweler's mutual insurance, and home site insurance for the alleged losses suffered while they were away. Edward Osefo gave recorded statements to two of the insurance companies. Insurance always records you. We've seen this in the Corey Richards case, and we will continue to see it in cases. Edward gave recorded statements to two of the insurance companies regarding the list of stolen items he provided. He was asked whether any of the items on the list had been returned, which he denied. He was asked if he had other insurance but failed to disclose to Homesite and Jewelers that he was also making a claim with Travelers. Insurance companies don't like that. You can't lie to them about having other insurance companies. They'll find out. They're gonna know. No one's gonna know. They're gonna know. There are things you can trust in this world. And insurance companies finding a way to deny your claim is something you can 100% trust, and not disclosing that you have other insurance is going to be a reason for them to deny your insurance. Of course, they're going to know. For Homesite, both Eddie and Wendy signed sworn statement of loss, which was notarized. The total amount of loss claimed on the sworn statement was $2,500 for the house and $450,000 claimed for contents and personal property. If insurance pays out, you have to return what they paid to you, and then you are responsible, or can be responsible, for 3 times the claimed amount. What's 3 times the claimed amount? Well, you have to add the $450,000 and the $2,500. And that brings you roundabouts $1.3 million. To be exact, $1,357,500. But yeah, $1.3 million. They can be fined up to $1.3 million when you take the $450 and the $2,500 and then just add it times 3. So when we talk about the claim amount is a big deal. So when Eddie was reporting, he included an inventory of reported stolen items along with receipts for the purchase. Wait, chat, did I math wrong or did you math? Who mathed wrong? Hold on. I think I mathed correctly. That's why I get distracted. It's the $2,500, not $25,000 for the house. When he reported it to insurance, he included an inventory of reported stolen items along with receipts for the purchases of most of the stolen inventory. That claim was denied due to the failure to disclose the policy with Travelers. So the $450,000 claimed to Homesite was immediately yeeted for failing to disclose the Travelers, but it still can be used as the basis for the amount claimed. So when we are looking at the basis for the amount claimed, the $450,000 for the property and then the $2,500 for the home, even though that was denied, that can be used for their fine, the 3x the total amount claimed. So it got denied and it can be used for all the monies for the fines. Oh boy. Continuing on, in the original claim submitted on April 8th, 2024 to Travelers, Eddie confirmed that he and his wife were wearing their anniversary bands when the loss occurred. However, Eddie called Travelers Insurance on April 10th, 2024 and said he needed to update their claim, stating his wife's gold diamond anniversary band was missing. That same day, Travelers Insurance settled the claim for $25,380. which included the replacement price of the band, $4,500. So if they received $25,000 plus from Travelers, that has to get paid back before the fines even start. After the initial reported claim on April 11th, and this is why there's so many different counts, each representation to insurance is another count, and those counts can stack. The court won't always do that, especially with no criminal history. But that's why there are so many different fraud claims. They're each for different dates. And then the misdemeanors correspond with those same dates and the conspiracy to do that. So on April 11th, both Wendy and Eddie signed and submitted letters to Jewelers Mutual Insurance. I mean, they were also submitting these to 3 insurance companies, to Jewelers Mutual Insurance, claiming the burglary occurred and items were reported stolen. At the request of Jewelers Mutual Insurance, the Osefos provided an initial list of 57 stolen items. Included on the list was Wendy's gold diamond anniversary band that was reported in the traveler's insurance claim. So if you see charges for the same day, it can account for reporting to one insurance company and the other. Each claim on each day regarding loss to each insurance company can count as a separate felony if the amount of loss is over $300. We've well exceeded. It goes on to say, deputies were suspicious of the circumstances of the burglary and records from the stores where some of the items were purchased, along with social media and email accounts. Investigation determined that numerous items that the Osefos claimed were stolen had been purchased and returned to the store where a full refund was provided prior to the alleged burglary. These items were valued in excess of $20,000, including a Dior shirt listed at a value of over $1,400 that was returned in January of 2023 for a refund. A Gucci leather wallet that was purchased in 2018 and returned 2 weeks later for a refund of $947. Additionally, while reviewing the social media Instagram account for Wendy Osefo, because Real Housewife, deputies observed photos of Wendy prior to the burglary wearing a diamond anniversary ring on her left finger. The ring was reported stolen in the burglary. Then, after the burglary, on April 27th, Wendy is wearing the same ring on her left finger, is photographed at an event on a step and repeat wearing the ring. It's not like she was caught going to Starbucks by a paparazzi photographer and didn't know she'd be photographed. She's at an event with photographers posing for photos. The ring features multiple rows of diamonds and has a V shape on the side that separates where the rows of diamonds begin. The ring had been photographed prior to the burglary for appraisal and matches the appraisal photo of the ring. On April 27th, 2024, deputies obtained email records for the Osefos. On April 12th, 2024, Eddie emailed the list of reportedly stolen items to Wendy. The email asked if there were, quote, additional high-value items we can add to this inventory listing, parentheses, i.e. Chanel shoes, etc., end paren question mark. I'm trying to get the total to exceed $423,000, which is our policy maximum. Sir, how in the world did you think that that email wasn't going to come to light? Dorinda Medley, not a lawyer, but words of wisdom along the lines of say it, forget it, write it, regret it. I'm trying to get the total to exceed $423,000, which is our policy maximum. Also, I don't work in insurance, but I imagine a policy maximum claim would also trigger insurance to investigate. It goes on to say, at the time of their arrest, a search and seizure warrant was executed for the home. Deputies found at least 15 items that appear to be the same ones claimed stolen during the burglary, still in their home. There are signed affidavits. And if they talked about those items on the phone, then there are recorded calls where they reported those things stolen to insurance, and then law enforcement put those things in little evidence baggies, hopefully, not stop and shop ones. It seemed like the deputies had nothing more pressing and they were investigating this. 15 items that were reported stolen under penalty of perjury, it seems, and marched back out of the house by law enforcement. They go on to say investigation revealed that the Osefos to be burdened by substantial debt. I have no knowledge of that. However, if this goes to trial, it will come up, though I imagine, depending on the recorded calls, that their attorneys are going to want discovery immediately to see what else is in the emails and then try to deal with this expeditiously. They go on to say Eddie and Wendy conspired to make fraudulent statements and provide misleading information in support of making the 3 insurance claims for financial gain. In the press conference, law enforcement did say that there were absolutely no signs of a burglary and that it was seemingly odd to them the way things were disheveled and or staged, and that law enforcement at the beginning of this investigated it. What if it's a burglary? But also, what if it's not? What we also learned in the press conference is that the neighbors in this neighborhood, where reportedly there has never been a burglary, all have exterior cameras. None of the exterior cameras caught anything that would indicate that there were people entering the house, walking around the house. Their security system didn't catch it, their Ring didn't catch it, and none of the exterior cameras caught it. It's going to be interesting to see how this progresses. Now, are either of them going to get 100 years in custody? No, that is not going to happen. The question will be, will they get time in custody over a year, or will it be a substantial amount of fines and probation? Neither of them have presumably a criminal record, given the professional licensing of Eddie. I would assume that none of them have a criminal record. And if that is the case, if there is early responsibility taken, I would imagine that they will try to negotiate a plea deal. I am interested to see how things play out, because Karen Huger, who was the grande dame of Real Housewives of Potomac, was just recently released from custody for her DUI. This is different. So the consequences to this criminally could include custody time. I don't think they are going to get a substantial amount of custody time on a first-time offense. It seems that the insurance companies did not pay out a ton. The fines in this will probably be substantial. The bigger question to me is the consequences professionally, especially for Eddie's law license. This would be a felony of moral turpitude. It involves lying for financial gain. The bar does pretty substantial background checks, so I imagine the bar of Maryland is not going to be thrilled with this, and it's probably already been reported to them if he's not required to self-report before this. Additionally, carrying a license for any type of cannabis business is A, difficult to get, and B, requires quite a bit of red tape. And I imagine there could be significant consequences to the Happy Eddie Cannabis Company as well. I imagine the Happy Eddie Cannabis Company is not going to be too happy with these updates, and he might have to shift ownership of that business and license it to someone else and remain the face of the business for a percentage, but he might not be able to own that business going forward. So there are a lot of considerations here, both inside the criminal court, outside of the criminal court. And even though these could stack year over year, and they may get some custody time, I don't mean to downplay that, but the 100+ years that they are facing sounds incredibly significant. I think the financial penalties are incredibly significant and can be incredibly significant here. The custody time is going to depend on a lot of factors, including early responsibility. So we will see. Is there any mandatory minimum prison time on this? No. There are mandatory minimums on some of the fines, but there are not mandatory minimum prison times. The next question that y'all are going to ask me is, well, what did Andy have to say? So let's talk real quick about what Andy Cohen had to say before we get out of here for this episode. So, financial impacts, big. Could they face custody time? Yes. Do I think it will be significant and substantial custody time? It's going to depend on how this progresses. Is it going to be a nightmare to try to get insurance in the future? Yes. Is this pattern of insurance fraud shocking to me? No, this is a pretty typical insurance. I mean, emailing about it's not typical, But the report things that are stolen that aren't stolen, or report things destroyed that are not destroyed, is like the thing that happens in insurance cases. The comfort with not turning off the security and emailing about trying to embiggen the loss makes me wonder if insurance will be looking at if there are any other claims, because that's a real unserious, it's going to be fine kind of an email to send. That's not a, ooh, we shouldn't defraud our insurance, but you know, it's insurance companies. Fuck those insurance companies. It's a real comfortable email. I'm real curious about what else might be in the email. That's just nosy former prosecutor of me. This story comes to us from E! News from October 13th. Andy Cohen breaks silence on Real Housewives of Potomac star Wendy Osefo's arrest. Days after Wendy and her husband Eddie Osefo were arrested on multiple felony fraud charges, fellow Bravo star Andy Cohen spoke out for the first time on the Real Housewives star's legal troubles. I need to know if behind the scenes, Andy is like, stop it. I do not want to respond to this anymore. I am tired of being asked about your legal stuff. Can we not get arrested? Thanks. They go on to say Andy Cohen is no longer pleading the fifth. Of course they did, because it's a segment on Watch What Happens Live. When it comes to Dr. Wendy Osefo's shocking arrest. Quote, like all of you, I found out about the charges against Wendy and Eddie on Friday morning, and there's not much that I can say. He goes on to say, I know nothing of the charges more than you guys do, than what I've read. I'm really sad about this. He added, I'm a Wendy fan, and she has been a great housewife and a great role model. He goes on to talk about Wendy and her kids, who are 11, 9, and 5, saying that Wendy and Eddie always promote education and solid family values, and I'm really thinking about her and her family. They go on then to talk about the indictment and the incident of the indicted Wendy and Eddie, both 41 years old, on the multiple felony fraud counts, 7 of the former professor and 9 for the husband. Additionally, they were each charged with 8 misdemeanor counts of conspiracy, fraud, and 1 count of giving false statements. The couple were released on $50,000 bond each and returned home. A rep for Wendy and Eddie publicly addressed their run-in with the law for the first time. Let's hear what their rep had to say. Quote, Dr. Wendy Osefo and her husband, Edward Osefo, are back home safely with their family and in good spirits, Wendy's rep told E! News on October 10th, the day after the arrest. They're grateful for the outpouring of concern and support from friends, fans, and colleagues. The Osefos, alongside their legal team, look forward to their day in court. At this time, they respectfully ask for privacy as they focus on their family and the legal process ahead. The pair are due back in court in November. Yes, November 7th. I imagine their legal team is like, can you please get us all the discovery so we can have some very frank conversations? Because if things are as they are presented, there is a lot that the prosecutors are going to lean into, including that email. Because a burglary looking wonky, there's jurors who could be like, but this and but that, and but what about this? But that email is going to be really, really difficult to get around. And Wendy on step and repeats at events wearing property that was reported stolen within the same month that it was reported stolen is going to be difficult to work around, especially if they have no receipts, which it seems that they don't, for replacing the items. And customizing a ring in that amount of time seems like it would be difficult and a bit too fast of a turnaround. Had that step and repeat been 6 months later, 8 months later, I might not raise an eyebrow at it because people can replace things. But that close in time to when the burglary was reported to when she was wearing the ring again is really close in time. And since it's at an event, it's pretty easy to say, oh, this event happened on this day, and that's the step and repeat from the event. So with all of that, let me know what you think. Let me know what you're looking forward to me covering more of. Don't forget to get the Law & Order app. This is how I remind you, part 2. Get the Law & Order app so you can stay in the loop when it's time to board for the EDB Air launch. You want to be in boarding group A. I know that you do. The members get to pre-board, but you definitely want to be in boarding group A before the launch because EDB Air is getting ready and we have some really cute, fun, travel-themed merch for you. So make sure you are on the Law & Order app. I will see you live streaming on Tuesday. There is quite a lot to talk about. So if you've been following along on the cases that we have been covering on the live stream channel, you're not going to want to miss Tuesday, as I am crossing my fingers that nothing pops off between now and then, because we already have a show planned for Tuesday. And I have been waiting to check out the things that I want to tell you about for Tuesday. I don't think we have time for multiple things on Tuesday, but there's some new Corey Richards documents from the prosecutor that I really want to talk about with y'all. So I guess more housewives in criminal court this week, but it's been a minute since we've gotten to delve back into reality TV, which, you know, is one of my first loves. Law Nerds, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a Law Nerd. Let me know what you're interested in seeing more coverage of down below. Say it with me. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being a Law Nerd. I will see you in the next one. Well, in chat on Tuesday. Bye. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss updates on your favorite cases, you're going to need the Law Nerd app at lawnerdapp.com. That way you can stay in the loop on the cases that matter most to you, and you never know when you're going to catch feelings for a new case. So make sure you get it for free on iOS and Android. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a Law Nerd.